how to move an aquaponics system. This is what we're going to see together in this video. So someone asks me, what is the process to move an aquaponics system from one location to another? This is something that I'm going to do very soon as well. I am going to move from this place to another place, but still in Melbourne suburbs. And obviously I will have to move the whole aquaponics systems that I have behind me. In order to do that, obviously we are dealing with an ecosystem. So at some point we're going to have to stop the ecosystem to move it somewhere. And there are some very specific steps to follow in order to make sure that we don't lose the plants, the bacteria, but also the fish. So in order to move an aquaponics system, there are maybe different ways to do it, but what I'm going to give you today, I'm going to give you 20 very specific steps, very clear steps to follow if you want to move one aquaponics system from one location to another, and it's going to be adapted to grow bed, backyard grow bed, flood and drain aquaponics systems. So just before that, when we think about the aquaponics system, I said we got 3 different types of living creatures that we need to focus on. The plants, the bacteria and the fish. Obviously the plants, you know, they don't require so much care. You know, you need to make sure you keep the roots in good conditions. Most of the time the plants don't like to have the roots exposed to the sunlight. So if you can, try to keep them in the dark. You remove them, but then you put them in a bag or something to make sure you keep them cool, dark. And if you can, you need to give them a bit of moisture, right? They don't like to be completely dry, or at least not for too long. In terms of bacteria, we got bacteria in our aquaponics system. Those bacteria, they need oxygen, moisture, and the surface area, right? So we got our media. If we move the media, the bacteria are going to stay on the media, so that's not a problem. Just try to not get it too dry and not too hot, right? And then if you just take care of those things, obviously they don't like sunlight neither, so if you put the media in a bucket, that's all right. If you can cover the bucket, that's even better. But generally speaking, we got so many bacteria in our grow bed, in our media, that it's going to be wet enough to transform the fish waste into plants fertilizer. Finally, the fish. The fish is the most tricky part because the fish are living creatures and they are quite fragile. So we need to make sure that we're going to supply them obviously with water. We're going to have some water for them, but this water needs to be in good parameters. There are several parameters that you need to check. But the main ones are obviously a good quantity of oxygen, because when you're going to transport them, you're probably going to put them in a small tank. So you're going to have all your fish in a small tank. So you need to make sure you got enough oxygen. So you can add a little air pump, a little electric air pump. I mean, there are things that we need to take care of that we're going to see. And obviously, we want to make sure we don't have too much ammonia and nitrate in the water when we transport the fish and when we stock them. So we're going to go through those 20 steps one by one in this video. Just before, I want to remind you that if you are new to aquaponics, you can have access to a free aquaponics training from the description of the video just below. It's a 6-step process to help you to build your own aquaponics systems in a good way, in a way that is going to be able to avoid some mistakes that we often see. And it's going to allow you to produce sustainable, healthy and tasty food in your own backyard. So it's completely free. It's in the description of the video just below, or in the like information on the corner of the video somewhere. You can also subscribe to the channel. I release 1 video every week. And now we're going to go through the 20 steps to move an aquaponics system from one place to another without losing the fish, without losing the plants, and obviously without losing the bacteria. So the first step is probably one of the most important, is that you need to be prepared. You need to plan the day when you're going to move, and you need to stop feeding your fish several days before. What I recommend to be good is to stop feeding your fish 3 days before the D-day of the move. Why we stop feeding the fish is because when you feed your fish, obviously the fish are going to have plenty of food in their guts, and when they have food in their guts, they need some energy to digest it, so they need more oxygen and they are more fragile. A fish that has an empty stomach, it's going to be easier to transport. It's going to allow you to be a bit more relaxed on the oxygen in the water and in the different parameters. So make sure that the tummy of the fish, the digestive system of the fish is completely empty. But that's just one thing. The other thing is that when you feed your fish, obviously you supply ammonia and nitrates in the aquaponics system. But because you're going to stop the system, it's better to stop this supply for a little while. So 3 days is the minimum that I recommend for an aquaponics system. You can do it for a bit longer, it's not a problem. 1 week will be good, but 3 days, is the minimum. So for 3 days, you don't supply too many fish waste into the system, which means that it's going to kind of slow down a little bit. So 3 days, stop feeding your fish. That's the first step. So once you have stopped feeding your fish for 3 days, during this time, you have to prepare another tank at reception. So in the place where you're going to put your aquaponics system, in the new home, you need to have another tank. The tank that is going to be able to have your fish during the time that you move all the elements of your aquaponics system. So you need basically a second tank. And there you need a big volume of water, and if you can, add a filtration. Obviously, most of the time you don't have any biological filtration, but if at least you can put a little water pump that is going to just run around, some air pump, to make sure you got enough oxygen, is going to be enough. If you can have a tank that is the same size as your current tank, that will be good. 1,000 liters, that will be perfect, but it depends on the size of your aquaponics system and on the quantity of fish that you have. But you understand the idea is to have a second tank where you're going to put some water there, and it's going to allow your fish to be transferred from this aquaponics system that is currently present to the future transfer tank. So the idea is that we're going to fish the fish, we're going to put them in a bucket, and we're going to put them in this transfer tank. In this tank, it's going to be just for a few days. It's going to give us some time to remove this aquaponics system from here and to rebuild it at the future location. So this aquaponics, this tank can be anything. I recommend IBCs because they are very easy, but you can use any type of water tank. As long as obviously it's food grade, I mean, you know the whole thing, no metals, it has to be a good structure, it doesn't have to leak any chemicals in the water, and it has to hold the water, that's it. And then you put some air pumps inside. If you can add a little water pump, that's going to be helpful. Because you are not going to feed your fish, you don't need to have such a big filtration. But anyway, the bigger the volume of water is, and the better it's going to be. So I recommend to prepare this water tank at least 24 hours before, because you're going to have to put some water in the tank and you may have to use tap water, so you need to allow 24 hours for all the chlorine to evaporate, and with the air stone inside the air pump, it's going to allow your fish to live in a good environment during the time that you rebuild your own aquaponics system. So that was step number 2. Step number 3 is to transfer your fish to a little esky or a bucket of water. Basically, you're going to have to fish your fish, you put them in a transfer tank, and then from this transfer tank, you're going to carry this transfer tank in your car, at the back of your car, and then you drive to the new location, and there you put the fish into their transfer tank, you know, the tank that is there for a short period of time. So in this little esky or bucket, you can add an air stone as well. It's very important to make sure that you're going to have enough oxygen for your fish in this tank. Step number 4, once you have fished the fish and you put them into this transfer tank in the back of your car, you arrive in your new place and you're going to fish the fish again and put them into this temporary tank. There you need to make sure obviously there is enough oxygen, but we saw this in the previous steps. You can check the water parameters, but normally the fish are not going to release too much waste, organic matters, which means that the water parameters are not going to change too much. And what you should absolutely not do is to feed your fish. You don't feed the fish at this stage. So now we are in a comfortable situation because we have our aquaponics system that is empty of fish. The fish are in the new location in a tank with clean water. All the digestive system is empty, so there is no organic matters going into the water. So we have a bit of time before having a wave of ammonia and nitrates in the tank. So now what we need to do is to take care of the existing aquaponics system. So now we're going to remove the plants one by one. So as I explained in the introduction of this video, the plant roots don't like the sunlight. So when you remove the plant, try to put them, either all of them in the bucket, where basically the canopy or the leaves are going to cover the roots that are underneath, but you don't want to expose the roots to the sunlight. So try to not expose the roots to the sunlight for too long, and obviously don't keep the roots dry. Try to always keep some moisture a bit. If you put them in a bucket, put a bit of water on the bottom, a very narrow film of water is enough. You don't need to have the media with it because it's going to be for a very short period of time. So you put this in a bucket aside, you can transport them to the new location. That's the step number 5. Now, step number 6, you're going to have empty grow bed of plants, but you still have the media inside. Now is a perfect opportunity to clean the media. If you had your aquaponics system running for a few months, there are a lot of chances that you have organic matters between the media. The organic matters are coming from the fish waste, but also from the roots. You know, some roots break down. You may have some leaves that fall down, but also a lot of bacteria. Bacteria produce some biomass, you know, it's a biofilm of bacteria. And all this can, with time, clog the media. So now that it's empty, you're going to move it. It's a perfect opportunity to clean it. You want to remove as much organic matters as possible. So at the beginning, you have your water, you have a tap water going into the grow bed, and you move all the media. I made a specific video about how to clean your grow bed media. So have a look at this video. We are not going to spend too much time on this specific video today, but that's a step that you should do right now. Because that's the perfect time to do it. So once your media is clean, then you can transfer the media into a bucket or into bags or whatever. You know, you move the media from the grow bed to bags or buckets, so it's going to be easy to transport to new home. Be very careful, don't put too much in one bucket or one bag, because obviously the media is super heavy. When it's loaded, you know, it's moist, a lot of moisture, so inside there is water plus the rock. So don't put too much in a bucket, otherwise you're gonna kill your back trying to move those buckets. So try to use a lot of them and be very gentle with yourself, right? Okay, so now our aquaponics system is empty of living creatures. It's not totally true, right? Because there is still water, and on all the walls of the fish tank there are some algae, there are some bacteria everywhere. But I mean, we got enough of bacteria in our media that is in those buckets that we're going to transport to the new home. So now what we're going to do with the remaining aquaponics system, we're going to empty the whole thing. So we remove all the water. So you can siphon the water from the fish tank, and you can remove the bell siphon, you know, the stand-up pipe in the bell siphon. So everything drains on the bottom of the fish tank, and you siphon this water away. Okay, now step number 9, everything is completely empty. So you can now move the grow bed and move the fish tank to the new location, and you move all your equipment to the new location, including water pump and anything, any wiring systems that you will require for your aquaponics system. Step number 10, you start to put the aquaponics system together. So fish tank first, on top you put the grow bed. It has to look as it looks like now, obviously without the plant and without the media. Put the water pump in place as well in the fish tank, don't plug it yet. And yeah, put everything in place as it should be. Step number 11, now you can put the media back into the grow bed. So this media that you just cleaned, that is into those buckets or bags, you're going to now empty those bags into the grow bed and fill the grow bed with the media that is now clean. Step number 12, you can now put the plants together inside the media. So you can plant the plants. Plant your vegetables, basically. Okay, now the aquaponics system should look exactly like this one, but obviously it's empty. So now you can put the water in the system. If you are using tap water, what I would recommend is to only fill the fish tank. Once the fish tank is completely full, you put the air pump in place and you leave it for 24 hours. So in this case, again, we're going to allow the chlorine to evaporate. We are not going to send some chlorine in the grow bed yet, because in the grow bed we got our bacteria. So when we send the water there, we want to make sure there is not too much chlorine. So we're going to wait for 24 hours in this situation. Step number 14, after 24 hours, you can now turn the water pump on. So the water is going from the fish tank to the grow bed, and obviously you will have to top up a bit the level of water in the fish tank. Now, because there was a lot of movement in our grow bed, you may have some dirty water, let's say, colored water, brown water a bit that is falling down into the fish tank. So you leave the system running, but after a few hours you can come and start to siphon the side of the tank, to clean them. Step number 16, we are now going to do a water test. Before putting the fish in the system, we need to make sure that ammonia, nitrate are below the limit of acceptation of our fish. So we're going to take a bit of water and we're going to analyze it. If it's still above the fish limit, we're going to renew some water. We're going to renew 70% of the total water in the fish tank and wait a bit for a few hours and retest the water. If everything is okay, then we can go to the next step. If it's not okay, we redo this. We renew the water again and we retest the water until the water level is okay, is acceptable for our fish. Step number 17, you can finally introduce your fish back into the aquaponics system. So the aquaponics system is now in the new location. You know that the parameters of water are correct. You can now introduce the fish into the fish tank. One thing very important, you don't feed the fish yet. Step number 18, you do some very regular water tests. You want to make sure that you're not going to have a wave of ammonia or nitrate. Obviously, you will have kept the temporary water tank. So if anything happens, you can always transfer the fish back in emergency into this temporary water tank. Step number 19, if everything is okay, you can now feed your fish, but with very low quantity of food. You want to give them just a little bit of food to see how they react, but you don't want to add too much ammonia into the aquaponics system. Step number 20, after another 24 hours, you can now check the water parameters, seeing if everything is okay, and if it's the case, then you can now feed your fish properly and go back to your routine, feeding them every day. But I would recommend to check the water parameters every day during the following week. You can now pat yourself in the back. You have transferred your fish from one location to another location successfully. The whole aquaponics system has been transferred. Everything is fine. You haven't lost anything. That's a complete success. Congratulations, you have done it. So I hope this video will be useful if you have to transfer your fish from one area to another. If you follow those 20 steps, you shouldn't have any problem. Obviously, like on any of my videos, your comments are really welcome. I may have forgotten anything or you may have anything to add to this video. So in the comment section, that will be very interesting and we can talk about this, maybe improve this process. Once again, if you are new to the channel, you can have access to the free aquaponics training from the description of the video just below or in the eye, like information on the corner of the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe and receive one video every week. And if you thought this video was interesting, you can give it a like and share it with your friends. I see you in the next one. Bye bye. Don't forget to get your free gift from this screen. You can also leave me a comment below the video, subscribe to the channel and see my last video. I really hope to see you soon and I wish you a fantastic success with aquaponics. Have a good crop!